Hey guys, Brett Weiss here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited today. This is the inaugural edition of Tales from a Retro Rocker. Yes, my channel is definitely a video game channel, but it's also a pop culture channel, and I like to talk about different aspects of pop culture, whether it's music or movies or books or whatever. But in the 80s, I went to a ton of concerts, had a lot of crazy adventures, and I want to tell you about some of those just in some different episodes. Today I want to talk about the publication of my book, Encyclopedia of KISS, which was the world's first and only KISS encyclopedia. Lots of other bands have had, these iconic bands like the Grateful Dead, the Rolling Stones, the Who, the Beatles, Elvis, and on, have had encyclopedias, entire encyclopedias written about these specific bands, and in some cases, more than one encyclopedia, by different authors. But KISS had never had an encyclopedia, and I thought that was really strange. It just dawned on me one day, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I want to tell you just a little bit about sort of my history with the band and growing up liking them and that kind of stuff, and when I met Paul Stanley a couple different times. I'm actually going to do an entire episode on meeting Paul Stanley, so I'm just going to touch on that briefly. Anyway, let's get to it. So I discovered, if memory serves, it's your memories of, being a little kid, get a little foggy, things run together. But my first memory of listening to KISS is their excellent live album, KISS Alive. This is one of the greatest live albums of all time. Even critics that aren't particularly fond of the band will admit that this is an amazing live album. And I love the cover art. I love every song. And it opens up, you get notes from the band, which is amazing. That just blew my mind as a kid. And it points you to their 3 earlier albums. And this live album does have songs from those 3 earlier albums. And they're just, really cranked up, louder. For those of us who couldn't go to KISS concerts, this was the closest we could get as listening to KISS live, KISS Alive and KISS Alive 2. Great album. So this is listening to Nothing to Lose on this record. That's the first memory I have of listening to KISS, and that song blew me away. I was, this would have been 1975, and I was 8 years old. I was a rocker from very early on because my brother and sister, were older than me, and were big rock fans. The Eagles, Boston, Rush, Led Zeppelin, The Doors, The Who, and on and on and on. The Stones. I grew up AC/DC, which is Judas Priest, all these great bands. So very cool. So I was definitely conditioned to like KISS when I first heard them, and that was awesome. So after I got KISS Alive, as you can see that I showed you, shows their earlier records. So that cued me in on getting their first album, simply entitled KISS. And I was surprised that the songs that are on here that are also on Alive are such different. The studio cuts sound so different, but that was very intriguing to me. I was also intrigued at how their early makeup looked so much different. And for this long story behind this photo shoot, the reason why Ace's makeup is silver and Peter's makeup is so different. But you can read about that in Encyclopedia of KISS, which I will get to. My favorite member of the band is Ace Frehley. I love his solo album, guitar heavy, awesome. You can see my Ace Frehley button there. And anyway, KISS encapsulated everything I liked pretty much in the world. I mean, they sort of encapsulated rock and roll, monsters, science fiction, cartoons, comic books, all this great stuff as a kid that you just love, that I absolutely love. And I had KISS. I just grew up completely obsessed with the band. I had posters of the band all over my walls, and I bought their albums, and I bought the magazines, and I would read the magazines over and over and over again, even if a lot of times the information was the same, whether it was Ace Frehley being from the planet Jindal, as he would say, or what Paul Stanley's favorite color was, or just, stuff like that. But, there was good articles too, and I absorbed, and anytime I heard about there being a KISS mention on TV, like in PM Magazine, they were on that, I was just all over it. And there were KISS posters plastered all over my walls. Thank you, Mom, for letting me do that. I remember my friend Gerald and I would ride our bikes to the store to get KISS cards. We would go and get, these packs of trading cards, like baseball cards or football cards or whatever, but there were packages of KISS cards. And we collected those and tried to put a set together, and we got so close, but we would get the same cards over and over again. But we would ride our bikes, a couple of miles to the store, and or a mile or so to the convenience store and get ourselves a Grape Crush or an Orange Crush and a pack of KISS cards, maybe a comic book. And my KISS cards are gone, but I've been sort of piecing a few together here and there over the years when, you know, I can find them cheap. So I've got a few here. I got a few pages of them, but I wanted to show you guys these. And on the back, you could put together a picture of the band, and some of them have little fun facts there. Loved KISS cards, loved KISS. Just great childhood memories of my next door neighbor, Gerald. Also a huge KISS fan. He was a couple years younger than me, and he actually had a KISS record player that we would listen to his KISS albums on. And the only KISS things I had were the albums, for the most part. I had these buttons. I had Ace Frehley, and I had the band. I bought these at Helen Gallagher's when I was a kid in the late 70s. And I had Gene Simmons, and I had Paul Stanley. And money was so tight, I never did get Peter Criss. I intended to, but he was I love all four members of the band, just incredibly of the band. But Peter Criss was my least favorite, just a notch, you know, below the others. And, you know, in order, it was Ace Frehley, always, then Gene Simmons, then Paul Stanley, then Peter Criss, although I absolutely loved all of them. And nowadays, it's Ace, then Paul, then Gene, then Peter. But anyway, love them all, great. And anyway, I never did get that Peter one. They were $1 each, which was a lot in the late 70s. Anyway, so I was obsessed with the band, but I only bought mostly the records and the magazines, because I absolutely had to have the records. It was all about the music to me, more than the makeup or the explosions or the spectacle or any of that stuff. It was all about the music. So of course I had to have the albums, and I wanted to know more and more about KISS, so I bought all these magazines, and that was the most important to me. But I couldn't afford the toys, you know, with the allowance wasn't that much, and you know, being a kid, I just didn't have access to much money. And, you know, $1 a week, you know, that would give me, I would save up for the magazines, save up for the albums. But like the KISS, you know, toy guitar, the KISS van, all that stuff, couldn't afford it. But that's okay. I still had a great childhood, being an absolute obsessed with the band. And as a matter of fact, I put together, we did buy card model kits. The KISS model kit was $10. And so, that was too much, but you could get a car model for a little over $2. So I bought a car model, and some of the KISS decals that came with one of the KISS albums, I used those decals to decorate this. So I made myself a KISS car because I couldn't quite afford the KISS van. So, like I said, I love the magazines and the albums. I had Crazy, of course, with Gene Simmons on the cover, and confoundingly, they never had a Mad magazine. There was another Crazy magazine with KISS on the cover, which I'm still looking for. I read mine to pieces back in the day. I hope to replace that. But they were never on the cover of Mad magazine, and they were never on Saturday Night Live. That just blew my mind too. But anyway, getting off the point here. But my favorite KISS magazine of all time was KISS Meets the Phantom of the Park. When this movie came out in 1978, I was 12. I could not wait. It was like Christmas was coming, you know, the months leading up to it. I was just super excited for that. And if memory serves, the magazine came out before the movie actually aired. And regardless of, you know, it's like I said, memories get a little hazy. I looked at this magazine. This is the original copy. It's got some wear there. I looked at this again and again and read it again and again and just thought it was so cool. This picture in particular, I just thought Ace Frehley was the coolest human being on the planet, even cooler than Dr. J and the Flash, my other two childhood heroes. Ace was just the coolest human being on the planet, just amazing. And he was a great guitarist, still is. Just saw him live not too long ago in Dallas, just a few months ago. Still incredible, still great. And of course, there were the KISS comic books. And here's one of them that I actually read so much the cover fell off. Love the KISS comics, and on and on and on. And with KISS Meets the Phantom of the Park, this movie, this made-for-TV movie, and I was so excited for it. And when it aired, I absolutely loved it. My friend David Fry came over, and his parents were super strict and super religious, and they were not going to let him watch KISS Meets the Phantom of the Park. But he was a big KISS fan, but he had to watch it. He absolutely had to. And so he came over to my house, and he just told his parents he was just going to come over and hang out or play or whatever. And so we watched the movie. And I remember being just jumping up and down, basically, waiting for this movie to start at like 7 p.m. or something, Central or whatever. And I remember in the couple of minutes leading up to the movie, I would leave the room like I wasn't going to watch it, and then I would run back down the hall and just dive headfirst into the living room floor. I was crazy. It was like I was on a sugar high without actually having sugar. I was just super excited about Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. And it turned out to be a super enjoyable movie for me, a 12-year-old. You know, you can look at it now, and it's campy, it's corny, the effects are cheesy, you know, the stand-in, you know, like the stand-ins for Kiss during action scenes, the stunt doubles, you know, they didn't look like Kiss. As a matter of fact, the one for Ace Frehley was an African American, so very low production. But at 12 years old, I loved it. I remember the only thing I wanted that I didn't like about it, I wish there would have been more Kiss music in it. But other than that, I loved it. There was monsters, there was fighting, Kiss walking around talking, which was just blew my mind because mostly I'm just hearing them on the album. And, you know, the occasional TV appearances. So I loved Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. That was so great. Fast forward a little bit to 1984. I'd never gotten to see Kiss in concert throughout the 70s. It was just out of the question. My parents were very cool about me listening to Kiss and having the albums and the posters and everything, but going to a concert was really out of the question. I don't even remember asking to go because it was just such an alien concept. You know, I knew my parents weren't going to take us to a Kiss concert. That was just, you know, we're out in this little suburb of Fort Worth, and Kiss did play Fort Worth and Dallas, but just that was just so foreign to me. But I do remember in 6th grade, my friend Bill, he said it was during the Dynasty era, and this would have been 79, and he said he had 2 tickets to go to Kiss, and his dad was going to take him, but his cousin may not be able to go, and so I could go instead in this place. And I was so excited about this and just had dreams about it. You know, I could not imagine what that would be like, you know, just seeing all the pictures of their live performances with all the fire and bombs and smoke and spectacle and seeing little clips on TV. But of course, Bill's cousin Troy could go after all, and they went. So I never got to see Kiss until 1984. January of 1984, I saw them at the Lick It Up tour in Dallas, and this was when I had a car and I was hanging out with friends who drove. So we were able to go to Kiss, and it was cool, but they didn't have the makeup, and you know, it was a much reduced show, but it was still Kiss, still my favorite band. And by this point, Ace Frehley had left the band, but there was a rumor that Vinnie Vincent had left the band and Ace Frehley had come back. And so we expected to see Ace Frehley, but we saw Vinnie Vincent, the screeching guitar. And so that was disappointing, but still, it was Kiss in concert, blew my mind. And then around 86, we met Paul Stanley and Eric Carr. I'm going to do an entire episode on meeting Paul Stanley, so that'll be a lot of fun. And sadly, Eric Carr had passed away. You know, I think of 91, he passed away. You have to check the Encyclopedia of KISS for that, or just look it up online. Anyway, sadly, he had passed away, but we did get the chance to meet him. Unfortunately, I don't have my Eric Carr autograph anymore. I had sold that and my Paul Stanley autograph, but I do have pictures of meeting Paul Stanley. That was great. And then in 96, at the Reunion Arena in Dallas, I finally got to see KISS in all their glory, the original lineup with their makeup and their costumes and everything because of the reunion tour. It was awesome. It was finally got to see my childhood heroes the way they were meant to be seen, with their costumes and makeup and everything. And again, it's always been about the music to me, but that was just, you know, icing on top of the cake, getting to see them originally like that. So let's get to the Encyclopedia of KISS. You know, ever since 75, I've been a fan all the way through. During the 80s when they took off their makeup, during, you know, after Dynasty, you know, with Dynasty was kind of sort of had a couple of disco songs on it, and they had The Elder, which was a concept album that just sort of confused a lot of people. Even when it came out, I wasn't crazy about it, but I've grown to love it now. I love that album. And Kiss Unmasked was disappointing because we thought we were going to see them with no makeup on, and it was a real light pop album, so that was confusing. And they had a grunge album later on in Carnival of Souls, but regardless, I've been a KISS fan throughout, and I got to reading some KISS books. You know, a couple of my, you know, old KISS books. These are really early KISS books, and these sold hundreds of thousands of copies back in the day because there weren't many KISS books about, you know, there weren't many books about the band in the 70s. But much later on, you know, nowadays there's a lot of books about KISS, and each of the band members has written an autobiography. And I was reading all 4 of them, you know, over time. a few years ago, Peter Criss's Autobiography, which is a little cringy in places, but seems pretty raw and honest. Paul Stanley, he can get a little full of himself. On when he was doing the book tour for this, he kept talking about other rock bios being like, you know, birdcage lining and stuff. Paul, no need to disparage other books to talk about how great yours is. It is indeed a great book. It seems to be very honest, and he talks about it's probably the most critically acclaimed and best of the 4 KISS autobios because he goes into, it's very well written for starters, and he goes into his microasia, I think it was called, about his deformed ear, and that was really interesting. And let's see, Ace Frehley. I remember a lot of fans being a little disappointed with this book because he doesn't go into enough of his crazy stories. You know, he was probably the wildest member of the band, you know, wrecking cars and being, you know, into drugs and alcohol and all that. And I know a lot of people wanted, you know, just a more raw look at some of those stories. But regardless, it was pretty good. And then Gene Simmons, you know, you hear a lot of the KISS stories you've heard over and over. But I enjoyed that as well. And, you know, Gene puts a very positive spin on a lot of things, Gene related. And throughout, you know, they do disparage each other through these books. But, you know, they did have a contentious relationship, you know, in the late 70s. So whatever. But I was reading those 4. And I also read Nothing to Lose, which is a really great, very comprehensive look at the band from 72 to 75. So I was reading all these KISS books. And it occurred to me that there had never been a KISS encyclopedia. Like I said, all these other bands, KISS is one of the most iconic bands of all time. You know, along with the Beatles and Don't Laugh, the Spice Girls, they are one of the only bands where every single member has their own set of fans, where every single member is recognizable by the general public and knows them by name. You know, a lot of people don't know who Bill Wyman from the Stones was, or who, like John Entwistle with The Who. You know, rock fans know, but just the general public, with KISS, the Spice Girls, and the Beatles, everybody knows the individual characters or band member names, however you want to say it. Anyway, KISS is one of the most iconic bands of all time, you know, with the Stones, with the Dead, with, you know, blah, 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 Elvis. But they didn't have an encyclopedia, and I thought, I should write one. I thought, you know, all this KISS trivia, all the obscure things that a lot of people don't know, all the you know, just the mythology surrounding the band, clear some of that up. Some of the iconic KISS moments, like the Empire State Building shoot, you know, Ace Frehley's audition where he wore a red sneaker and an orange sneaker, and all these different things, you know, Gene Simmons' tongue, you know, and all these different things. You know, the books they've been in, the magazines, the comic books, their movie and TV appearances. All 4 band members, original band members, have been actors in different shows and things. And I also, so I thought, there has just never been a book to put all this stuff together and to, you know, weed out some of it to get down to the truth. You know, so to write the book, which is, like I said, Encyclopedia of KISS. See a Gene Simmons silhouette on there, which I'll get to in a minute, and sort of the destroyer-ish colors, which I'll get to in a minute, and some quotes and descriptions and things. There you go. Encyclopedia of KISS was definitely a labor of love, and to write it, I watched tons of interviews on YouTube and other areas, you know, via old VHS tapes. I read other books. I you know, interviewed a few people, and I did all these different things to get as much information on the band just condensed into encyclopedia format. And as you can see, you know, it's got your typical encyclopedia style entries, and it does have some photos. And I want to give you guys some behind the scenes stuff on this book. So McFarlane Publishers, they are the publishers of my classic home video game series of books. They were very interested in the idea, and they accepted it right away. They thought that's a really good idea because they like to publish reference books, and they like to cover ground that hasn't necessarily been covered. You know, specific. You want to plug a niche in the you know, the publishing world. What exactly hasn't been done? This was an obvious gap since all these other bands have had encyclopedias. why not? There's no reason at all that KISS shouldn't have one, so I thought I'm going to fill that gap. And so the publisher loved the idea. Now, let's talk about the cover a little bit. This is not the original cover. The original cover, the publisher completely came up with, and to say I was disappointed with this cover is an understatement. This is the original cover of Encyclopedia of KISS. This looks like some kind of 80s rocker from Pantera or something, like just some generic heavy metal dude, and nothing at all like KISS. I mean, the color for the cover is, I guess it's okay, but that image had to go. But their first run of books had this cover. And when the book got most of its publicity early on, you know, a lot of websites ran, like Brave Words and all these different websites, Goldmine, ran with stories about my KISS book. And a lot of it focused on the fact that it was the first of its type. But this cover, you know, a lot of people complained about the cover. And of course, it is a terrible cover. And so I didn't know how willing McFarlane would be to listen to my ideas for the cover, because they had said they wouldn't put a picture of the band on the cover because they didn't want, you know, Gene Simmons can be litigious at times. Hasn't really gone after many books, really. That's, you know, that'll be a story for another time. There's a lot of self-published books, a lot of independently published books about KISS that the band had no involvement with, such as this book. But so it's really, but McFarlane was being overly cautious, and they didn't want to put a photo of the band on there. So I suggested they do a silhouette of a Gene Simmons performer from a KISS cover band. That way they could be just completely, they don't have to worry about that. And another thing McFarlane didn't want to do, they didn't want to put KISS in all caps. They thought that was a little too close to copyright infringement. And I said, no, as long as you don't use the lightning bolts, you know, the famous KISS logo, you're going to be fine. So they did agree to put that in capital letters. And the designer used the Destroyer colors, which is cool. And this is a much better cover. I would rather have a photo of the band, but still it's pretty cool, and you immediately know what it is. It's KISS. Now, the title, Encyclopedia of KISS, Music, Personnel, Events, and Related Subjects, that's not my title. McFarlane wanted to go something kind of studious like this title. I wanted to do like the hottest, you know, Encyclopedia of KISS, the hottest book in the land or something like that. But they said, no, that's a little too hot for our market, because McFarlane is a literary publishing house, and they wanted to go for something like this, Encyclopedia of KISS, and then with that subtitle. So that's okay, it's fine. So anyway, those are some secrets behind Encyclopedia of KISS, and a couple of books that were real helpful to me. KISS Hotter Than Hell. This is the story behind every song. Super helpful book. And KISS FAQ, or KISS FAQ, however you want to say it, by Dale Sherman, Facebook friend of mine. By all accounts, a really cool guy, great KISS buff, KISS expert. This was really helpful as well. And another book that inspired me was The Ultimate KISS Fanzine Phenomenon. This was just a great book with all kinds of obscure information about all these KISS fanzines. That was helpful as well in creating the book. And another thing about the book, real quick, I assumed it was going to be a hardcover book because my classic home video games books, the original release of all those were hardcovers. And this surprised me when this came out in softcover. And I just thought it was going to be a bigger hardcover book. But McFarlane doesn't hardly publish any hardcover books anymore, which I've come to learn. And so I was a little disappointed by that, but still the book has gone over well, and I've heard from, you know, just gotten messages, and there's been reviews of, you know, longtime KISS fans and KISS experts said they learned a lot of new things reading the book and that they've enjoyed it very much, and then they keep it at their side, you know, just to enjoy, and so that's very rewarding that. So that's it. There's just some secrets behind Encyclopedia of KISS. It was a lot of fun to read or to write. I went back and listened to every single KISS song before I wrote about each song. And I listened, you know, I got all the albums, and I read and read and read and researched and researched and researched to do the best book I possibly could. And I think it's turned out pretty well. Now, at some point, I'll do an episode on KISS video games. And that'll be probably a Tales from a Retro Gamer episode. And I'll do one on Paul Stanley, you know, meeting him a couple of different times. One time he was really cool. One time he was a little irritated, but I'll get to that at some point. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this long episode, this inaugural episode of Tales from a Retro Gamer. Let me know in the comments your KISS memories. Have you met the band? What was that like? And just growing up KISS, tell me what that was like. And what KISS books do you like? Have you read Encyclopedia of KISS? Comment, any KISS comment is fair game in this first episode of Tales from a Retro Rocker. Thank you guys so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. And just thank you for rocking out to KISS. I'll talk to you guys later.